All right, so this is going to be a relatively quick, oh, let me clean the lens. So this is going to be a relatively quick live coding. I just want to get this SparkJoy app to production. Like, the front end is already in production because of Netlify integrations and GitHub Actions or whatever that thing is. I forgot how I set it up many months ago. The problem is the backend. Right now, everything is going to what's called the dev stage, which means that it's deployed like this. So if I go to awsamazon.com, I'll be able to show you. In the meantime, I should probably open the correct project in my VS Code. So if I go to, where is it? Use auth, Gatsby, SparkJoy, where are you? SparkJoy. So right now, if I look at serverless.yaml, I have a hard-coded stage called dev, which points to this stuff here. So if I go to my Lambda, you'll see that it is named SparkJoy dev GraphQL, and database itself is also called dev something. So it's called SparkJoy widgets dev, and so on. So everything is named dev, but I need to have a separation between production and development, which is what I'm gonna set up right now. And once I have that set up, then I can pretty much do whatever I want. Basically, the idea is that there's going to be a separation between the production server and the development server, so that I can develop in parallel and reset my things without hurting production and the tools that I'm about to start. Whoa. And the stuff that I'm about to start using on my mailing list. So let's get started with that. The main thing I want to set up is, it's already pretty easy to just deploy to dev or to state or to production or whatever. What I want to do is implement a bash script that is going to make it even easier, so I can run this via Yarn, because that's how I'm used to doing things. And instead of figuring out completely from scratch, I am going to try to use some stuff I've developed in the past. And this is also stuff that I'm going to be adding to serverless_handbook.dev, so that people don't have to copy paste it in the future, or at least so that people can copy paste it in the future, but that it's easier to copy paste. So git pull origin, we're gonna be working on this thing, and this is stuff that I developed at work, so I'm just gonna go borrow it there. We're gonna open package.json. Let's see, package.json. This one here you see I have npm run build that runs the build process for TypeScript, and then it runs SLS deploy. Instead, we need to insert the stage here that comes from the parameters that we write. So I'm gonna go into my work project and copy a bash script that I developed a couple of months ago, and I've been using it at work pretty successfully, so I'm gonna use it here to just to make my life easier, so I don't have to figure it out from scratch, because let's be honest, my bash is not that great. So I'm going to create deploy.sh, which is surprisingly pretty simple. So let's see, I'm gonna open a new file, and I'm gonna copy paste this stuff like that. So backend, here we say deploy.sh. So deploy.sh runs, let's do npm run build instead of yarn run build. That way it's a little bit more, how should I say, it's easier to reuse in other environments when you're not using yarn. And what do I need to do in package.json is this thing. So instead of running just this stuff, it's going to run sh deploy.sh. And now let's see, we can prove that this works by printing or echoing echo $stage. So now if I run, let's see, what am I running? If I say yarn deploy, if I run yarn deploy, it should run that bash script and print the word dev. So it's compiling. First it compiles TypeScript in my thing, and then it prints the stage dev. If I say yarn deploy prod, then it's going to write prod, and I'll be able to use that in my serverless YAML to dynamically set the stage based on what I'm deploying to. Okay, so that part works. Now let's see. I'm gonna take this, and we have node env $stage in package JSON that goes into deploy sh. And now how did I use this previously? I need to make this stage come from node environment, I believe. Let's see if that's correct. It is. So this comes from $opt stage. Oh, and the node environment is so that I forget, where am I using node environment? Node env. Let's see, node env. I'm using that. Oh, I know where I'm using it. I'm using node env for .env files. So here where I have .env, I have some stuff that then gets put in. That's a different problem. That's a whole different problem. So I've got that set up. I can now say git status. Let's do git add dot that adds the deploy script. I can say git commit -a-m, and let's say this is called, what should this be called? This is git commit -a-m. We're gonna call it dynamic deploy stages, deploy dynamic stages, dynamic deploy stages, bam. And now I can say yarn deploy prod. So that's going to deploy to the production stage so that I have a separate deployment. And we're gonna see if that works in a little bit. While that's happening though, I need to go into the front end and make sure it's connecting to the correct stuff. So let's see, if I go into Gatsby config, here in Gatsby config I have this going for Gatsby source GraphQL. So the server URL is now dependent on, what's it dependent on? It's dependent on which stage we're deploying to. Either is this production or is it development or whatever. So I need to figure out how to make that more dynamic. How do I do that? That one we're gonna have to figure out from scratch. And the other place where I have that is going to be in, let's look at Gatsby browser. It's getting the client from Apollo. So we have the server URL defined in Apollo.js, and we also have it defined in Gatsby config. So how do we make sure that this goes to the correct stuff? That's a good question. That is actually a very good question. Let's see. In Apollo.js, we could detect so Apollo.js is something that runs on the client, which means it has access to environment variables, or rather to query params so it has access to URL params. But this one needs to have access from the node environment. So you see we got a new URL here. So if I go to prod GraphQL, whoa, that is a fucking huge bug. Response not successful. I have to add here prod GraphQL, then I can play it and I get all of the stuff. And here I should now have a new set of SparkJoy lambdas. Let's see, SparkJoy. So there's a SparkJoy prod GraphQL, which is connected to a new DynamoDB database, or a new DynamoDB table at least. In this new table, let's see, tables, SparkJoy votes, dev, prod. So we have widgets to prod, and we have SparkJoy votes prod, and this is the production data now. So this is the data that I'm not supposed to just wipe or mess around with, whereas the development data is something I can, it's just something I can mess around with. Now let's see. Jesus, that thing is scary. Okay, so how do we get the right thing here? First of all, we need to be able to trigger, how do Netlify environment variables work? Netlify environment variables, and we're gonna basically hard code our stages. Netlify build environment variables, perfect. Netlify docs. In the Netlify configuration file, so we have Netlify toml, and it looks like we can define variables here. File-based configuration allows you to set different environment variables for different deploy contexts. Let's look at deploy contexts, and we can go into environment variables on the settings dashboard, or perfect. Node.js version, Node.js environment, npm version, npm flags, blah. Read-only variables. So what is node env? Dependency. If you set the node env to production, any dev dependencies in your package JSON will not be installed for the build. JavaScript dependencies, okay. So by default, Netlify's buildbot sets node env to development. You can change this value by setting a node env environment variable. So that's going to be our clue. To install the yarn version, Bower, Ruby, Node version. All right. So here we have command yarn build. So it goes into the front end part of my repository and runs yarn build. Now if we go into package.json, yarn build, where is it? Build, scripts build runs Gatsby build. So we can actually go here and figure out how do we set deploy context? Deploy context. This context corresponds to the main site's deployment attached to the Git branch you set when the site is created. Deploy preview. This context corresponds to the previews we built for pull merge. And branch deploy. This context corresponds to deploys from branches that are not the site's main production branch. Okay. So besides these three predefined contexts, sites can use branch names as custom deploy contexts. Cool. So we are going to do it exactly that way. Here we're gonna go into context.production is going to define context.production.environment, and environment is going to define node env as production, or let's just call it prod. Prod, so to keep the same parameters from what I'm using on the backend as what I'm using on the other places. And if we go context feature, let's do it like this: context dot deploy preview environment. Deploy preview will deploy is generated from a pull merge request. Yeah, deploy minus preview dot environment, and also context dot branch deploy. So this is just to make sure that all of the branches and stuff are always connected to a development environment. We're gonna say node env equals dev, and then here we're going to say no. Oh, we don't actually have to do it that way. We can say server URL. We can define the server URL here. That might be even better. Yes. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's just define the server URL here. So context production environment. We're going to say we're going to use the same node environment, but we should also say server URI. Actually no. What would be a good way of doing this? If we bake it right in, because we do need it at build time. So we do need to know at build time where we're going, but then also at usage time in the browser, we also need to know whether we're going to dev or to prod. Okay, so node env prod, which means this is going to be difficult to test, I think. Manage deploys. Meh. Okay, so I'm gonna figure out how to trigger a deploy later. Now let's go into the build stuff here. And how do we get a node env from things? Let's see. Node env vars. Node environment variables. Let's see. Node.js provides a global variable process.env, an object that contains all environment variables. Perfect. So what are environment variables? Use.env .env .env library. We don't need that one, do we? Although it does, that does look nice. You know what? Okay, if you cannot commit the blah, do we consider? No, well, the server URL isn't really secret, is it? I mean, it could be secret, but it's not. So I'm just gonna put it in .env files. The .env library, let's see how does that one work. npm.js .env.env loads environment variables from a .env file, yarn add blah. So how does this get different stages and stuff? Node, oh come on, node env, no, how did I do this in here? Because I think I'm using .env as well. .env, serverless.env plugin. Oh, but that one probably goes to the different stages. So I'm just gonna use we're just gonna do it here. So we're gonna get a switcher like this. Not import, but const envvars equals const envvars equals require dot slash, should it be in source? No, it doesn't need to be in source because we're going to be using it in browser, SSR, and so on, or in Apollo.js. This is hard. This is a hard call. So I'm gonna try using it here. We're gonna say require dot slash environment helper.js. Okay, and we say server URL instead of server URI. We're going to say envars.server URI, or like this, server URI. Bam. Then we take this guy like that, and let's go figure this out. We create a new file called env-helper.js, and we save this as React mode so we get the right things, and then we say module.exports equals, we're going to then say environments of current environment okay, so that's what we're returning, like that. And then here we say let environments equals like that. So this is going to be an object that nests all of our different environments. So we're going to say prod is going to look like this, and dev is going to look like this. So we're using server URI like that. So we get the server URI and we get the server URI for production here. Where was it? When we deployed, we got this URL, prod GraphQL. Okay, so we have prod server URI, dev server URI, and I'm going to write a warning. This is not the place for secrets. Okay, so we're gonna have to figure out what to do with secrets some other time. For now, this is great. We have production, we have development, and for default, we're gonna also use default. Now we're going to say if, let's see, how do we get the correct environment? I'm gonna say let current environment equals dev, default dev environment is safest option. Okay. And then for the current environment, if the environment query param is defined, so if, let's say, if process.env exists, if process exists and process.env exists, then we say current environment equals process.env node, come on, node env. This is our default environment. Otherwise, else if window.location, if type of window is defined, so if type of process is not undefined and type of process.env is not undefined, or actually, yeah, we can just do it this way then. So if process is defined and env is defined, then we get the current environment from there. Otherwise, we check for the window. If type of window is not undefined, right? Then if type of window is not defined, and we don't need to console log anything. Yeah, we don't need to console log anything for now. So we got that. Then if window is not undefined, how do we get query params? I feel like I solved that in the Vode.js page. Query query, components full screen form, widget vote query, params get. How did we get the params? Params URL search params from that. Okay. So if that exists, then we say current environment equals this get, oh come on, dot get env or current environment, right? So use node env if exists, and then here, and we're always going to say or current environment, use env equals x if exists. So if the from URL if it exists, so I should now be able to deploy this, and when I go to production I should see it pointing to the production server instead of the development server. So we're going to try that out. Git status, git add dot. Let's build it locally first, just in case. So locally, it's building on. We're running yarn build locally, and it fails. So that was a good thing to use. Cannot read property server URI of undefined. Okay. What if we say console log current environment? Did that actually manage to get set? Because if it doesn't work, then we're stuck. Okay, so current environment is production. Where did it get production? Process.env. Let's see, what is process env saying? Aha, node env production. So why is node env set to production? Echo dollar node env. Where does the node env come from then? When I go into package.json and I'm not this package.json, the other package.json from the front end, we run Gatsby build. What if I run yarn start? If I do yarn start, then it's going to say development, right? So server URI of defined, Gatsby develop, Gatsby sets it. Josh Manders, that is, you're probably right. What I don't know is where is Gatsby setting it. Gatsby node env environment variables in Gatsby.js. Environments and environment variables. You can provide environment variables to your site. If you run Gatsby develop, then you will be in the development environment. If you run Gatsby build or Gatsby served, then production. If you want to define other environments, then you'll need to do a little more work. See additional environments below. Okay. Client-side JavaScript. For project env vars that you want to access in client-side browser JavaScript, you can define an environment config file .env development or .env production. I did not know that Gatsby already gives us this support. So that's actually pretty cool, because that means we can say production and development and use them from there. Yes, so we want to, and we actually want to make this into a switch statement. So we're going to say switch current environment, and we're going to say let envars equals an empty array. Typo in development key. Yeah, you're right. That's a nice typo. Thanks, Josh. So environment variables, case production, case prod, because I want to be able to use both. Then we return, then we say envars equals this stuff, break, and we say case dev or case development. Then we get this server URL, envars equals blah, like that. And actually, we're gonna clean it up even more. We're gonna say get env of current environment, like that, and this is going to be a function get env that gets the current environment and returns this stuff. So return, so that way we don't have to split, you know, come on. And we can say this is also the default. What am I doing wrong? That's what I was doing wrong. So we have get env, which takes the current environment and returns production or prod. It returns this server URL. For dev, development, and default, it returns this server URL. And for current environment, we can also do it this way. So get envars of get env, like that. And then we can say function get env is also a function that does this stuff. So we return this. Actually, let's just return current environment. Return current environment, like that. So this is not the place for secrets. Yeah, I think this should work now. I hope. Let's see. So when I say yarn start, this is now going to manage to build, I hope. There we go. Bam. So that worked. Now if I go to localhost 8000, you're going to see what happens. Elements console, responsive. I don't need this to be responsive. Is it gonna load? Okay, so localhost 8000 has problems with auth0, but more importantly, when I go into the page, let's see, start sparking joy, auth callback goes back. Here GraphQL is going to this AHE5z something, but if I say env equals prod and I reload the page, then it should go to, well, it manages to forget where I was, but okay, so auth0 is my authentication process is resetting stuff. So I'm going to deploy to production and try it out there. Git status, git ls cd.ls wise, okay, git commit -a -m. We're going to say that we set config frontend for different environments. God damn, that is annoying. My keyboard is completely falling apart. And I can say git push origin master, and when I deploy this to master, it should now trigger, well, when I push to master, it should trigger a Netlify build, and that Netlify build should be able to realize that it's building for production and connect to production servers. So let's see if that actually happens. I'm gonna go to netlify.com and see what it says. Login. There we go. Owned by moi. This is now building in production, or building for production, so I'm gonna wait for this to finish building and then verify that it's actually working the way I intend it to work. And when that happens, I'm going to say that that's going to be, if that works, we're done, because I have a bunch of other stuff that I need to get done today. And then I'm gonna get to start using this, if it works. Come on. Okay, so this might take a little time. I don't actually know how long it takes, which is a problem. Auto publishing is on. From master are published automatically. 37 new files uploaded. No redirect rules processed. Build time 1 blah. Site is live. Okay, so now let's see if it connects to the correct server. We say sparkjoy.netlify.com. Responded with a status code of 400, which is annoying. That's something I need to figure out. This part works. I can click start sparking joy. Yep, 1 minute 30 seconds, and it connected to the wrong server, I think. Let's hard reload just in case. Yeah, so it is still connecting to the wrong server. Okay, at least it logged in, but when it goes to GraphQL, see, it is still connecting to the wrong server URI. Why is that? Oh, I think I know why that is. We forgot to use the environment helper in the other stuff. So I need to go into Apollo.js as well. And this also needs to get the server URL from the environment helpers. So if we go into Gatsby config, we can say, let's see, import env vars from ... env helper, and then I can say env vars dot, right? Is that how I was using it? I can do dot server URI. That makes a lot more sense. Dot server URI, like that. Apollo.js here. So we use that server URL instead, and let's see if that works. Git commit minus a minus m. Use configurable. Yes, use configurable server URI in Apollo.js as well. Git push origin master. Now let's see if it's going to work. So we're gonna wait for the deployment to go again. Okay, 5 vulnerabilities, that's not great. So, but I can go here, where were we? env, spark joy, no, deployments. Wait for the new deployment to finish, which last time was about 1 minute and 30 seconds. So we're gonna wait a little bit, see if it works, and then I can start actually dogfooding this part, or this whole thing. Huh. Okay. Building 1053. Is it almost done? It's almost done. Almost. Bootstrap finished. Can I use this? Outdated. Yes, I knew. So I don't know why, but I always feel like clicking around the UI makes things go faster. And fun fact about that, back in the Windows days, it did actually used to make things go faster if you moved your mouse. It was some weird optimization thing that they were doing, but if you look it up, it's a pretty interesting story. Basically, if you were moving your mouse while Windows was doing work, the work would go faster than if you just left your computer and walked away. And that was something to do with prioritizing stuff. Why not use the define environment plugin? That is a great question. I'm not sure. I think I just didn't think of that, to be honest. Okay, now let's see. I'm gonna reload the page. Why is the authorization stuff complaining? I don't like that. So empty cache and hard reload. Start sparking joy. Yes, now it worked. Did it work? GraphQL goes to yoo-hoo something. Perfect. So that works now. It's now going to the right thing. Where with the define environment plugin, that is a great question. So if we go to Gatsby plugins Gatsby.js, I can look for define environment. Okay, it's not there. Define and okay, it's not there. But one of the reasons I can't do it in Gatsby Node is because I can do this. I can go env equals dev, and I can test with development data in production in theory, except for the whole authorization being buggy and kicking me out all the time. Let's see, will it remember? Nope. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on with the Okay, so define environment is a Webpack plugin. I definitely don't want to mess with Webpack because messing with Webpack means doing a lot of work that I don't want to be doing. But if I go to here, let's see, well, maybe Brave is the problem. Maybe that's why I keep getting kicked out. Start sparking joy. I go back to my page. Perm, no, it's still responding with errors. Env dev, and that's gonna kick me out. That's a problem. Okay, so we're gonna have to figure out what's wrong with the authorization stuff in a different session. But for now, this is working. I'm able to use Spark Joy with different environments. So if I say did this email Spark Joy, I'm gonna have to change this. I wanted to say did you enjoy this email? But if I export this, it copies to clipboard, and I can then go into ConvertKit. Let's see if that part works. So I'm going into ConvertKit. I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna start a new broadcast. Here, let's see, new broadcast. Let's say I want to send it to people who get weekly stuff, weekly emails. There's a couple of those people. And I can then paste this here. So why did the style not copy? That's weird. But, well, it sort of worked. Something's wrong with the styles. Why didn't oh, come on. Timeout during executing web message communication. What? Alright, I don't know what that is, but we got the... Okay, look, now I'm in. And I have my email thing. A page wasn't found for blah. But if I reload this, eventually, because in the background it's now rebuilding my Netlify stuff, so eventually this should show up. There we go. It's... Come on. Response not successful. Quoi? GraphQL is throwing a 400 error. Why? Variable user ID of required type string was not provided. Okay, so we have a bug that I'm going to fix next time. But this is kind of working. Sort of. I'm going to call this a moderate success for now. And then we're going to keep iterating on it next time. I'm not sure exactly when, because I need to really focus on moving for the next couple of days, but I'm hoping that soon. So thanks everyone for watching. I know this wasn't the most exciting episode, but I think I'm making great progress on something that's been on the back burner for a really long time now. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time.